Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the language of fashion. You know how it sometimes feels like it has its own secret code? Well, we're going to give you the key. We'll break down the big ideas that shape everything you see, from the wildest runway shows to what's hanging in your favorite store. Okay, so take a look at these two images. On one side, you've got Van Gogh's masterpiece, The Starry Night, and on the other, a crocheted jacket that's obviously inspired by it. I mean, you can totally see that same swirling energy, right? The same incredible blues and yellows. Putting them next to each other like this, it brings up a fascinating question. So, what are we actually looking at? Is the painting pure art and the jacket simply craft? Or maybe the jacket is an example of design? I mean, what's the real difference between these words? Getting a handle on these labels is pretty much the first step to really understanding how fashion works.
Look, to really understand fashion, you don't need a dictionary. That's not going to help. What you really need is a map of its spectrums. It's not about a list of isolated words. It's about seeing how ideas flow from one end to the other. And that's what we're going to do today, give you that map so you can see how all these concepts connect and even overlap.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll hit the creative spectrum. Then, we'll talk exclusivity. After that, the timeline of style, and we'll wrap up with how fashion loves to break its own rules. All right, let's dive in.
Okay, let's start with this first spectrum. This one is all about the why behind creation. When a designer or an artist makes something you can wear, what's their main goal? Are they trying to express an emotion, solve a practical problem, or are they just showing off some incredible technical skill? Let's get into it.
So, at one end of the spectrum, we have art, pure and simple. This is all about expression, right? It's about emotion, about beauty for its own sake. Just think back to that Van Gogh painting. Its job isn't to keep you warm, it's designed to make you feel something. Then you've got design. And with design, the magic word is purpose. A designer is basically a problem solver who uses artistic principles. That cool jacket we saw, it wasn't just an art project. It was designed for a person to wear. It has to look good, sure, but it also has to work. It has to fit, it has to be manufacturable, and yeah, it has to sell.
And rounding out this spectrum is craft. Craft is all about the how. It's the physical skill, the mastery of making something by hand. With that jacket, the craft is the actual crochet work, knowing exactly how to use the needle and yarn to build the fabric and give it shape. It's about pure technique and skill passed down over time. All right, so we've got art, design, and craft. That's the why and how of creation. Now let's move on to our next spectrum, which is all about how many get made. This is the exclusivity spectrum, and it goes from something that's totally one of a kind to something you could find millions of all over the world.
At the very, very top, the most exclusive end of the scale, you have haute couture. This is the peak of the mountain. We're talking one-of-a-kind pieces, custom-made from start to finish for one specific person. And yeah, the price tags are insane, but that's because you're paying for a unique design, the absolute best materials, and just an unbelievable amount of handcrafted skill in every single seam. And Giorgio Armani said it perfectly. My philosophy is evolution, not revolution. That really captures the spirit of haute couture. It's often not about some wild, crazy new trend. It's about slowly and carefully perfecting a vision, a signature look. It's about building a legacy, one beautiful stitch at a time. So that brings up a really important distinction. Haute couture versus prêt-à-porter. Prêt-à-porter literally means ready to wear, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's how those high fashion designers get their vision out to more people. The big ideas are still there, but now they're being made in standard sizes and sold in stores. It makes that high-end style way more accessible. And then all the way at the other end of the spectrum, we've got mass fashion. This is the stuff you see everywhere. It's produced in huge volumes, sold in stores all over the country, and comes in a ton of colors and sizes. The whole point is to be practical, affordable, and available to pretty much everyone. Okay, so whether we're talking about a one-of-a-kind couture gown or a t-shirt from the mall, every single style has a lifespan. Some things stick around for decades, right? Others are gone in a flash. And that brings us to our third map, the timeline of style. Let's talk about how long a look actually lasts. So on this timeline, you've got two extremes. On one side, you have the classics. Think about a great trench coat or the perfect pair of blue jeans. They become popular, and then they just stay popular for years and years. But on the complete other side, you have fads. These things explode out of nowhere, you see them everywhere for like a hot minute, and then poof, they're gone. These diagrams show it so well. Just look at that top curve, the fad cycle.
It's this super sharp spike up and then an equally dramatic crash right back down. Now contrast that with the classic cycle on the bottom. See how it rises, hits its peak, and then just cruises along on that high plateau for ages? That's the difference.
And what's cool is that every single trend, whether it's a fad or a classic, goes through these same 5 stages. First, there's the introduction, when the trendsetters pick it up. Then comes the rise, as more and more people jump on board. It hits its peak when it's everywhere. That's followed by the decline, because everyone's kind of seen it too much. And finally, obsolescence. It's over. So, if every trend eventually dies out, that begs the question, where do new ones come from? And that leads us to our final spectrum, which is all about innovation versus replication. Is fashion about creating something totally new and out there, or is it just about copying what's already popular? At the far end of innovation, you have avant-garde. The term is French for advanced guard, like the soldiers at the very front of an army. And that's a perfect description. This is fashion that's experimental, that pushes boundaries and makes you ask, is that even clothing? It's not always meant to be practical or to be sold in stores, but it's a huge creative statement for a designer. And this is a perfect example of how that works. A designer like Manish Arora creates these incredible, wild avant-garde looks for the runway. They're basically a form of marketing. They get headlines, they get people talking, they show off this amazing creativity. And all that buzz, it helps sell the things people actually can buy, like the designer's bags, perfumes, or more wearable clothes. The art on the runway fuels the business. Now, the polar opposite of that radical innovation is the knockoff. It's pretty straightforward. A knockoff is a copy, a close reproduction of a really successful designer piece. It happens all the time. A popular style gets remade with cheaper materials, so it can be sold to a mass audience for way, way less. And this is where having that map is so helpful. Because think about something as simple as a white shirt. It can exist on all these spectrums at once, right? It could be a handcrafted couture piece made just for one person. It could be an avant-garde statement, all deconstructed and weird. Or it could be a mass-market classic you buy in a 3-pack. The same basic item can have totally different meanings. So, when you boil it all down, you see that fashion isn't just random. It's a language, and it has its own rules, its own grammar. All these concepts we've talked about, art, design, couture, classic, avant-garde, they're the vocabulary. So now that you have the map, the next time you see an outfit, you won't just see clothes. You'll be able to read the story they're telling.